Hello, everyone, and welcome to Daily English Dose. Today, I want to share with you a story. It's about a young man named Minh and his journey to think in English without translating. Maybe you will see a little bit of yourself in him. Minh always dreamed of speaking English fluently. He imagined himself traveling, making friends around the world, maybe even working in another country. But in reality, every time he tried to speak English, he froze. His brain worked like a dictionary, Vietnamese first, then English second. The process was slow, awkward, and frustrating. One day, Minh made a decision. He told himself, "I don't want to live inside translation anymore. I want to live inside English." That simple thought changed everything. He started small. Every morning, as he brushed his teeth, he whispered to himself in English, "I am brushing my teeth now. The water is cold. My face looks sleepy." It felt silly, but also exciting. For the first time, English was no longer just words from a textbook. It was part of his daily life. At the market, he tried to name the vegetables in English: tomato, cucumber, lettuce. On the bus, he described the scene in his head. The bus is crowded. The old man is sleeping. The driver looks tired. No one heard him, but inside, his brain was practicing a new habit: thinking directly in English. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes he forgot words and felt stuck. But instead of giving up, he kept going. And slowly, something inside him began to change.
One evening, Minh sat down to write in his journal. He wanted to describe his day in English. He wrote, "Today is busy. I go to work." But then he stopped. He wanted to write something deeper, about the late bus, the annoyed faces, the frustration when his boss asked him to redo a project. But the words just weren't there. He felt stuck. His hand hovered above the paper. His brain screamed in Vietnamese. "Sab wit den che, ai kung bat ming. Sap bat lam lai zu an." But in English, he only had broken pieces. For a moment, Minh felt like giving up. But then he remembered his promise: no translation, stay in English. So he tried again. This time he wrote, "The bus came not on time. People looked not happy. My boss told me to do the work again. I felt not good." It wasn't elegant, it wasn't perfect, but it was English. That night, Minh laughed at his own sentences. They sounded childish, but he also felt proud, because even without the right words, he had managed to keep his thoughts alive in English. The next day, Minh carried a small notebook. Whenever he struggled with a word, he wrote the idea down in Vietnamese, then looked it up later. Slowly, his vocabulary grew. But more importantly, he discovered a new strength. He could still think in English even when words were missing. As days passed, Minh pushed himself harder. He described everything around him: the smell of coffee in the morning, the sound of rain on the window, the way his shoes felt heavy after a long walk. Sometimes he ran into big gaps. For example, he didn't know how to say umbrella, so he told himself, "the thing I use when it rains." He didn't know appointment, so he said, "a plan to meet someone." It was slower, but it worked. Minh realized that fluency is not about knowing every word. It's about finding a way to keep going. And every time he found another way, his confidence grew. One night, he opened his journal again. This time, he wrote a whole page in English. It was messy, full of mistakes, but it was real. And when he finished, he felt something powerful. For the first time, he had truly lived a day in English, from morning thoughts to evening writing.
But Min still wanted more. He wanted his English to sound natural. Not just simple words, but rhythm and flow, like music. One evening, he discovered a technique called shadowing. It meant listening to a native speaker and repeating immediately like a shadow. No translation, no pause, just chasing the sound. He tried it with a podcast. The voice said, "Good morning, everyone. Today we're talking about daily routines." Min repeated quickly, "Good morning, everyone. Today we're talking about daily routines." At first, he felt silly, like a parrot. But then something magical happened. His brain stopped translating. His mouth followed the rhythm of English. Even when he fell behind, he jumped back in with the next phrase, like chasing after a bus. After 20 minutes, he was tired but excited. For the first time, he felt English moving through him, not just as words, but as a living rhythm. He practiced shadowing every day, on the bus, on his morning walks, even whispering in the supermarket. People gave him strange looks, but Min didn't care. His English was transforming. By the end of the week, he noticed a big change. His inner voice was no longer robotic. When he thought in English, the sentences had rhythm and music. He smiled to himself and wrote in his journal, "Shadowing is hard, but it makes me feel alive. For the first time, I am not only learning English, I am living it."
Min's next challenge came unexpectedly. One morning, as he walked to work, he started speaking English softly to himself. "The street is noisy. Motorbikes are everywhere. The air smells like coffee and smoke." At first, it felt normal, but then he noticed a woman looking at him strangely. She whispered something to her friend, and they both laughed. Min felt embarrassed. He wanted to stop. But then he remembered, "This is my journey. They don't understand what I'm doing, but I do." So he kept going. He lowered his voice, but he continued, "I don't care what people think. I am practicing. I am building my future." That moment changed him. For the first time, he realized that learning English is not just about words. It's about courage. The courage to sound strange, to make mistakes, to look silly, and still keep going. Later, when he told his friend, Lan, about it, she laughed. "Min, you're crazy." "Yes," he smiled. "But maybe being crazy is the only way to learn." And secretly, Lan admired him. A few weeks later, Min's company welcomed a visitor from Canada. The manager asked Min to help with simple translation. His heart jumped. This was the moment he had been waiting for, but also the moment he feared. When he first spoke, his words came slowly. "Hello, welcome to our company. I hope you feel good here." The Canadian smiled warmly. "Thank you. It's great to be here." Something inside Min relaxed. He realized that communication wasn't about perfection. It was about connection. As they walked around the office, Min forced himself to think directly in English. Instead of translating in his head, he just described things simply. "This is our meeting room. We work here every morning. These people, they make designs, very creative." His sentences were short, broken but alive. And the visitor understood. By the end of the tour, Minh felt something he had never felt before: pride. He had just spoken English, not perfectly, but naturally. That night, he wrote in his journal, "Today, I used my English with a real person. I was nervous, but I didn't translate. I just spoke. And it worked." After that day, Minh changed his routine completely. He decided from morning to night he would live as much as possible in English. He switched his phone to English. He watched YouTube videos without subtitles. He listened to English songs and tried to sing along. At the supermarket, instead of thinking, "Minkan mua tring sua bang me," he told himself, "I need eggs, milk, and bread." At home, he spoke to his reflection in the mirror. "Hello, Minh. How was your day? You look tired, but you're strong. You're improving." It was strange at first, but little by little, his brain started to accept English not as a subject, but as a lifestyle. One evening, as he sat with Lan at a cafe, something surprising happened. Without realizing it, he whispered, "This coffee is too hot." Lan looked at him. "Minh, did you just speak English without thinking?" He blinked. He hadn't even noticed. It was natural. It was automatic. For the first time, English had become part of his thinking. But the journey wasn't always smooth. A month later, Minh hit what he called the wall. One day, he tried to explain a complex idea in English about his work project. He stumbled. His sentences broke apart. His colleague looked confused. Minh felt ashamed. That night, negative thoughts filled his head. "You'll never be fluent. You're too old. You started too late. You're wasting your time." He almost gave up. But then he remembered why he started. He thought of the mornings whispering English while brushing his teeth, the shadowing practice, the proud moment with the Canadian visitor. He told himself, fluency is not a straight road. It's a mountain. Sometimes you climb fast, sometimes you fall. But as long as you keep walking, you'll reach the top. The next morning, instead of quitting, he went back to his routine. He shadowed a podcast. He wrote in his journal. He described the street in English. And slowly, the wall began to crack. Months passed. Minh's brain became quicker. Words that once took seconds to appear now came instantly. He no longer needed to translate "doi bunk" into "hungry." The word "hungry" appeared in his mind by itself. He didn't translate "metois" into "tired." His brain just said "tired." It felt like magic, but it wasn't magic. It was the result of thousands of small practices. The whispered sentences, the shadowing, the courage to speak even when broken. One evening, he had dinner with an American tourist who had lost his way. They talked for half an hour about food, culture, even life dreams. Minh didn't translate once. He just spoke. When the tourist said, "Your English is really good," Minh laughed. "No," he said, "it's not perfect, but it's real, and it's mine." By now, English was no longer just a tool for Minh. It was part of who he was. He thought in English when planning his day. He dreamed in English sometimes. He even caught himself counting money in English at the market. One night, he looked in the mirror and whispered, "Minh, you did it. You stopped translating. You can think in English now. You're not just learning the language, you're living it." He knew the journey wasn't over. There would always be new words to learn, new challenges to face. But he no longer feared them, because now English was not outside of him. It was inside. And with a smile, he closed his journal and wrote his final sentence of the day. "I am not just speaking English, I am living in English."